noites ou como queirades. A primeira cuestión é para o discurso feminista. Cales son as propostas en relación á violencia machista? Cal é o vosso plan? Tamén unha suxerencia que tendes que achegar o discurso feminista á muller rural galega, que vexo que vos quedades un pouco na cidade. Iso para puntualizar. Respecto a Owen Jones, quería preguntar como ve o papel da esquerda neste terceiro conflicto armado que estamos empezando a vivir, que algúns xa chaman Terceira Guerra Mundial en diferido. Cal é o papel da esquerda? Porque recentemente acabamos de ver no Parlamento inglés como o Partido Laborista non foi quen de opoñerse ás políticas de Cameron. Gustaríame saber a súa opinión. Moitas grazas.
Parece que están... Sí, ya entendió. Bueno, yo por alusiones, cuando habláis del movimiento sindical, quiero decir que soy de la narcosindical, de la CNT, y llevamos, desde que no hemos firmado los pactos de la Moncloa, denunciando que el modelo sindical español que se pactó en el año 1977 desactivaba el movimiento obrero. Y creo que no nos hemos equivocado y que no todos los sindicatos somos iguales. Yo no me siento identificado con ningún otro sindicato. De hecho, nuestro modelo sindical es coherente, porque no nos presentamos a las elecciones sindicales. Llevamos denunciando que el modelo parlamentario trasladado al mundo del trabajo no es adecuado. No sé si Owen Jones opina lo mismo o tiene otra opinión.
Que tú empezaste diciendo que tienes 14 años, yo tengo 16, espero que eso no signifique que no me vayan a tomar en serio. Mi pregunta tiene un poco que ver con del tema del que hablas en chat y con lo que dijeron nuestras compañeras, que ¿cómo puede hacer la izquierda para ser más universal? Porque deja afuera a las mujeres. Recordemos que los padres fundadores de la izquierda son hombres cisgénero, blancos, burgueses, y que incluso la izquierda está demonizando a la clase obrera, a la que se supone que tiene que representar. Y lo que se pretende hacer en Europa es una expansión de la socialdemocracia que me recuerda al despotismo ilustrado, porque pretende hacer desde la bondad de sus corazones, los socialdemócratas, algo bueno para la sociedad, pero realmente no cuentan con el pueblo, siguen siendo la clase política, entre comillas. Así que mi pregunta es, ¿de dónde puede sacar la izquierda capacidad de autocrítica y capacidad para renovarse, para realmente representar a ese 99% que cada vez demoniza más y deja más a un lado, sobre todo cuando se trata de personas de color, mujeres, personas de la comunidad LGTB?
Mi pregunta para Owen Jones es muy sencilla. Me gustaría conocer su opinión sobre cómo ve al Partido Socialista Español, si cree que hay alguna posibilidad de recuperación para esta alianza de la que estamos hablando.
Hola, bueno, yo tenía una pregunta sobre algo que se dijo del feminismo y de no identificarse con etiquetas, y yo sinceramente creo que cuando decís que intentáis cambiar las cosas y sin identificaros con etiquetas como el feminismo, pero también hablando de economía, estáis jugando bajo los esquemas dominantes. Y al final, bueno, lo que yo quiero preguntar, cuando se llega al poder defendiendo unos ideales pero sin etiquetas, quiero decir, estáis habéis reclutado a mucha gente, a muchos votos, que no es consciente de esas etiquetas y de esa ideología. Y mi pregunta es que cuando se consigue ese poder, cuando están esas ideas que tenéis y cuando están difuminadas, ¿cuál es el cambio realmente? Porque esa gente la gente que os votó no es consciente de, por ejemplo, del feminismo. Usted hablaba de dejar atrás esas etiquetas del feminismo y hablar de un feminismo ganador, pero cuando la gente escucha eso y os vota, realmente no es consciente de la opresión total. Y mi pregunta es, cuando os vota, ¿cómo cambiáis, cómo se hace ese cambio radical que se necesita para... No sé si me estoy explicando bien o...
A brilliant set of questions, and it's really inspiring to be here. I feel humbled to be here, and the atmosphere is absolutely fantastic, so thank you again. Well, just quickly, male violence against women, because one of the worst problems is on the left sometimes is men even dominate on issues to do with women's rights. We have a term in Britain, mansplaining. I don't know if you have a similar term here, so I apologise to the translators. But it's where men need to learn from women, when men need to listen to the experiences of women. And the problem, what you've alluded to, is the left is still too dominated, of course, by men. And often when men are on the left, they think, how could I be sexist? I'm left-wing. So they don't criticise themselves enough. And I think we need to learn from that. I'm inspired by the incredible leaders like Ada Colau that you have produced in this country. And, you know, on male violence against women, I saw that, I think, was it Barcelona, it was in Catalonia, they've diverted money from subsidies for bullfighting for hostels for women fleeing domestic violence. And again in Britain, you know, one charity alone turns away 230 women and children every single day because they don't have enough resources. And when women are being killed by their current and former partners, and they're being attacked in their homes, and they're being raped and sexually assaulted, the services women need are being cut away. And that shows, again, how austerity, whatever you want to call it, is an attack on women. And it's an attack on women, whether it be the jobs that are disproportionately women, the low-paid jobs and all the rest. We've got to talk about it. The point you made about Syria, where have you gone? Syria, where have you... Over there, yes. I don't think there's a third world war going on, and the reason I say that is because I think it gives ISIS an image that they crave. They are a bunch of murderous thugs, and they want to see themselves as this sinister, evil, invincible force, and they're so effective, their enemies often flee them rather than fight them because of the image they project. So we have to undermine that image. And my view is this: we have had 14 years of the so-called war on terror. And who in this room, with a straight face, can say that so-called war on terror has been a success? Look at what it's achieved. Hundreds of thousands of dead people. Millions of people maimed, injured, driven from their homes. Iraq, Libya, reduced to disastrous, failed states. There wasn't Al-Qaeda in Iraq before the war. There certainly was Al-Qaeda running amok after the war. But you know what? Al-Qaeda, after 14 years, is on the verge of defeat. Not at the hands of the West. At the hands of ISIS, a group even more extreme and murderous than them. Everything, you know, every possible, if you look at it by any measure, it's been a catastrophe. And all at the same time, our governments arm and support dictatorships like Saudi Arabia, which behead people for being gay, for being sorcerers, which treat women like slaves, and then export their international extremism all over the world. And instead of standing up to them, the epicenter, the heart of international extremism, we sell them weapons, and in Britain, lower our flag to half-mast in respect to the Saudi dictator when he died. It's about time we start taking on the Saudi dictatorship and other dictatorships which are responsible for this international extremism. But Labour, just to say, most Labour MPs voted against Syria. The leadership obviously did. There is an internal fight going on in Labour at the moment, which some of you probably know, and some MPs used it as an excuse to attack Jeremy Corbyn. But most MPs voted against, and even with the Iraq war, when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, 139 Labour MPs voted against. It was the Conservatives who ensured that got passed through in Parliament. There is still a tradition in Labour that will oppose these disastrous armed conflicts, but it needs more pressure from below. And the anti-war movement was vindicated. I wish we hadn't been vindicated, because it was a lot worse than it actually we even predicted. Just quickly on trade unionism. I don't know the specifics of that agreement, but I oppose any agreement that sells out working people and betrays working people and attacks their rights and their living standards and their working conditions. All of those agreements have to be opposed. If your union opposed an agreement like that, then of course I salute you. And we need more unions, democratic grassroots movements determined to take on authority and represent their workers. And then just on the Spanish Socialist Party, well, you know, because I got some criticism at home, but sometimes from Spain, because in Britain my position was that if we wanted to build a left, then it would have to be through the Labour Party. And a lot of people thought that was a ridiculous assertion, that I was living in a fantasy world and that wouldn't happen. I'm not now going to say I told you so, but the difference between our system and your system is our trade unions are different, so they're not part in the same way of the establishment. They set up the Labour Party to represent them, and because of our electoral system, it's very, very difficult to set up a new party. UKIP, I oppose UKIP, as you probably guessed, a right-wing xenophobic party. They won 4 million votes, tragically, a few months ago. They won 1 seat out of 650. That's how our electoral system works. So there's been lots of attempts to set up new parties that try and be like Podemos, but our electoral system doesn't allow us to do it. So the difference with Labour is the left, the sorts of people in this room end up joining the Labour Party in a way you would never dream of joining PSOE. And the consequence of that, because we don't have a tradition of a party to the left of Labour, is the sort of movements you've seen here found their home in the Labour Party. Hundreds of thousands joined the Labour Party in the last few months, attended meetings and all the rest. So I think Labour is different from PSOE. I'm not going to equate them. In terms of what happens next, if there is a coalition, and it's up to your movements to decide if there's a coalition, just make sure you have clear red lines which aren't crossed. As long as you stick to your key principles and the key policies and don't surrender them, and in doing so betray the people who supported you, then that has to be a good thing to get rid of the government you currently have. But it's up to you. It's not for me to get on a plane from London and then start telling you about the coalitions. And just finally, on the left, you raised it before, the left has to be inclusive. We're here to represent the majority of society. And if we're going to represent the majority in society, we've got to look like the majority in society. We've got to have the experiences of women. We've got to have the experience of lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgendered people who still face massive bigotry and attacks. We've got to have black and minority ethnic people who face systematic racism and discrimination and prejudice. And unless the left is representative of those people, then it will not serve them properly. So let's make sure in all of our movements, if we're grassroots, bottom-up democratic movements, that we make them look like the people we exist to serve, and in doing so, fight for a society not just of social injustice, but free of sexism, racism, homophobia and transphobia, and we will build that society.